Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal, and you're watching the Mojo Story. In a short while from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will open the new look of Central Vista in the national capital. The area thronged by scores of visitors daily will be reopened for public after 20 months. The centre has also announced to rename the Rajpath and Central Vista lawns as Kartavya Path. The Central Vista will comprise of a new parliament building, a common central secretariat, and a revamped 3-kilometer long Kartavya Path from the Rashtrapati Bhavan to the India Gate. The project has in the past faced resistance from the opposition parties who are still opposing it, and there was also a halt by the Supreme Court. The route runs from Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Kartavya Path on the Raisena Hill through Vijay Chowk and India Gate to National Stadium in Delhi. Uh, the decision was announced with the objective of shedding remnants of the British colony in the country. So you can see on your screen the visuals of the new Central Avenue that's coming up, and that will be inaugurated by Prime Minister in a short while from now. Now, we joined by an eminent panel today to discuss this. We joined by Madhavan Narayanan, who's a senior journalist. We're joined by PKD Nambiar, a political analyst, and Irfan Habib also joins us, who is a historian. Welcome all to the show. If I can start with you, PKD. Well, the basic question that's been asked several times since the project was announced: why is the need for such an expensive project in a country like India, where there is so much poverty and there is inequality, and also a small affluent elite which controls or which is in possession of most of its wealth? Why was the need to have such a project in the first place?
Safar bhai, your question has got the answer to it.
Yeah.
Are we anymore that poor country? Or are we the fifth largest economy in the world? Or are we the emerging superpower or the global power? Do we really require a central vista? And I request all those who are criticizing the Central Vista project to visit to Shastri Bhavan, to Krishi Bhavan, to Rail Bhavan, and to some of those buildings, and including the prestigious South Block and North Block, and the great Parliament Mandir, Parliament of ours, and all those who had visited these places will be able to justify the need of a central secretariat which is of the stature of the new India. It will be the kind of requirement the new India requires from the point of view of our governance. All the top countries in the world, including some of the country where I do business with, like in Qatar, such a small country, maybe less than the national capital, but it's a rich country which they have a central secretariat, and it is the need of the hour. And those who are creating this massive infrastructure for the future of India may not be the one who may sit and enjoy it, because in a democracy the power is not meant forever. The power keep changing. The people who sits on the helm of affairs keep changing. I think this could have been done. I only feel it is delayed so much. This project Central Vista should have been done by the earlier governments, if not anybody else. The former the first NDA government should have taken up, if the Congress did not have taken it. The parliament,
the project should have started earlier. But Madhavan Narayanan,
at least 30 years back.
Do you sense misplaced priorities? The focus should rather be on education, health, and other sort of infrastructure. We go to government hospitals, we see the condition there. We see how people are suffering, as an example, in government hospitals, and then you have the infrastructure which is crumbling in many places of the country. Of course, New Delhi is not the sample of the country. India is such a vast country, and there are so many remote areas and underdeveloped areas. Do you think the focus should have been there rather than on this mega project?
No, Zafar, let me put it this way. I have been watching this entire episode. I mean, as in how New Delhi has changed since my childhood. I was born here. And I have to tell you that I would disagree with Nambiar on one aspect, on whether the timing should have been earlier. You know, the timing only recently, as recent as 1 year ago, that we have had finally some data to suggest that extreme poverty has come down in India significantly.
Yeah.
By extreme poverty, I mean people with 2 square meals a day were not, you know, that has just been covered. So you are talking about what I call relative poverty, where you're talking about health and education. We were talking about roti and kapra, and now you're at least talking about sehat and shiksha. So I don't think the project is late to start with. Whether the project should be done, how should it be done, that is where my focus is on. Because if you look at it in terms of the expenditure, this project is doesn't cost too much, honestly. Because if you compare it with the kind of loans that have been waived for big industrialists, that has been bothering me more, because public sector banks have foregone huge amounts of money, uh, which could have been spent on infrastructure, which could have been spent on health or education. So I don't get hassled over symbolism. This is a symbolism, you know, when everything is relative. First is when the British left India, you know, I've been having an argument on Twitter. Kingsway was renamed as
Yeah.
Rajpath in 1955. There are some people who are asking me why was it not done in 47 itself, who are fans of Mr. Prime Minister Modi. But I can use the same logic and say, if that is so, Mr. Modi could have done this in 2014. Why did he wait for 8 years before doing this? This is all too much nitpicking and hair splitting. What I want to focus on are two things. One is it change for the sake of changing? You know, whether it's a company coming with a new management which changes the logo, or you cannot change the country's flag. Mr. Modi has to accept it, but I think uh, doing cosmetic changes is part of the business of politics. And Mr. Modi is a very flamboyant, ambitious person who wants to leave a mark behind on the country. He sees himself not as another prime minister in a row of prime minister, but a historic figure with some kind of a historic significance. He wants to take the image of India to some kind of a back image, you know, as if he's talking about a renaissance of India, not the emergence of modern India. He talks about the
But
renaissance of ancient India. Let me complete. So my
yeah.
concern in this is, as a observer who likes the idea, is that we should not throw away the baby with the bath water whenever we start something new. So you cannot destroy the Taj Mahal saying because Babur was an invader. So similarly, there are lots of British institutions as well as processes which the previous governments took note of. Even the Constitution of India, the first draft of it was part of a British Act, which very in an inspired way was converted into a modern way. So I haven't yet taken a look at the central vista. Let me take a look. I hope the aesthetics are still preserved. I hope there is not too much of mauling of the space. Yeah,
Yeah.
but if it is within acceptable limits, uh, instead of doing it for the sake of doing it, we are okay with it. But I must say
Okay.
that what I'm more concerned about is, let me complete one thing. It's good to have Netaji Subhas Bose's statue being inaugurated, but I'm not sure if Rajpath should be renamed Kartavya Path, because
Yes. Yeah.
Raj here represents.
We will
Okay,
we
so
will
but
we-
yeah, we
we'll
will
talk
discuss
about
that.
that.
But
We'll talk
essentially,
about that. But
yeah,
essentially,
let
you
me
agree
one
that
point. Yeah,
yeah, you agree that time for such
I'm
a
saying,
project has come, that
yeah,
Indian economy has surpassed British economy, as PKD was saying.
yeah. I think it's not a bad idea to showcase yourself, but I would look
Yeah.
at the details before jumping to any conclusion. I'm not a rara nationalist, but I'm also a sentimental nationalist. So you have to nuance the whole point.
Yes. And now, uh, Irfan, Habib, PM Modi in his Independence Day speech stressed the need to abolish, colonial symbols. Do you think that it's just an example of that, the vision of the Prime Minister, that is now translating into reality on the ground?
No, I don't know where is the transition from colonialism to to something else. We transcended that long back because Rajpath, as Madhavan just now said, was not named by the British.
Yeah.
It used to be Kingsway and Queensway. We made it Rajpath and Janpath. Here, Raj is not British Raj. Here, Raj is governance. Janpath is people. So we are actually misinterpreting, either consciously, misleading people, sending a wrong message to people. People don't understand what your prime minister says it, so you take it. But actually, it is not. Because it is something done after independence in 55, maybe few years later, but it was done by us. So we transcended colonialism long back. So we should not actually make that case, because that is not true. Second, the whole story of economy, like PKD just said, fifth largest economy. Now, this is again a very misplaced understanding of what we are going through. Now, we are more than 80 crore people, according to the Prime Minister, are living on dole. No, this is what we are doing, and we proudly announce it every other day. No, that is not something which speaks very, very highly about our economy. No, we have a section of people who have become rich, and we can, of course, flaunt them as new India's rich people, rich India. But we also have 80 crore people who survive on the dole which we supply to them,
Yeah.
and we are doing it very proudly and announcing it very proudly. So economy wise, I don't think we were in a very good situation, and the sort of investment we have done here could have been watered down a bit. We could have changed it. We needed some change, of course. I don't question that. But those changes should have been within, not really through these exorbitant expenditure, which we can't
Yes.
afford in this country, where so much else is not so hunky dory, and we all
Yes.
know that. But we want to overlook all that.
So
Second,
let me ask that. Let me ask this question to PKD, that a vast chunk of the population still dependent on the doles. That's another reality of India. You may say that Indian economy is growing; it's the fifth largest economy, but uh, you cannot overlook the fact on the ground that there is a huge chunk of population which is still struggling for its basic survival.
Absolutely. So I do agree with everyone on that particular part, that there is a large amount of our population, a legacy of crisis which we still go through. It may have been minimalized by, not by just one government, maybe with multiple governments in place. I don't want to give that whole credit to just Narendra Modi, and he's the only one who has created the India what it is today. And in fact, my Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he did not even take it himself, but that is being a reality. So what we need to talk about, that how do we overcome this? Now, how do we overcome this has got multiple dimensions. One, from the point of view of Central Vista, since we are talking about it, because as Madhavan said, that he may not be knowing that how well it has been made. I have been a part of this project from the day one. I was known to that when the multiple architects across the country, or even from the internationally, have come and participated in the design practice, to from how it has been finalized and etc. Maybe some amount of way I was able to be, and I also debated during the key time when the opposition for this project was done, more than 40 places. Now I will tell you the requirement why Central Vista. Let me invite all of you, because I'm nobody to invite. I'm just like you. The Central Vista, which is going to be inaugurated by the Prime Minister today, is nothing to do with the rich of this country. In fact, this place what we are going to be inaugurated today is the one thing which is used by the lowest level of people of our country, or Delhi, or the people who comes to Delhi. Can you imagine that the entire Rajpath, there was not even a toilet? Have you seen the water bodies in the in the this particular place for several decades? It is not even clean enough. Have you seen that the kind of trees and the gardens which were the landscape of this particular place was one of the worst? Maybe it may not be even there in any of the Lutyens' bungalow. So such kind of a thing which requires to have a makeover, and the 20,000 odd crore rupees which we are talking about is going to be spent by this country over a period of 5 years. Narendra Modi is going to build the kind of wrong informations have been portrayed and or given in the public discourse from the last couple of years against this project it was all going to be proved wrong from today. And I'm very happy with the fact that with some of the topmost
That
bankers, I have debated topic, after seeing the project yesterday, they will start talking about the positive part of it. I can only
okay.
say, come
We
and
will.
have come and have a ice cream tonight at
Yes.
the India Gate. You will be feeling
We'll,
delighted and
we'll see.
proud as an Indian.
We'll see the difference. But the other point, Madhavan wants to quickly come in. Yes, Madhavan.
Yeah, Mr. Nambiar, are you sure we are talking ice cream? Has the national sweet dish been made kulfi yet or not?
I think
I wasn't sure.
I think I'm
No,
sure that
no.
kulfi, papadi chaat, everything you will get at the India Gate. What all I'm saying, just let me just tell you one more thing. This
Yeah.
entire project, for an example, I'm telling you the significance of it. The energy efficiency, that is from the point of view, scientific point of view. The preparedness of the disaster preparedness of all these particular buildings. These buildings, which most of these buildings have lived more than 50 or even 100
Yes.
years, which is not
Yes.
at all inefficient. The ministers, even the cabinet ministers in Shastri Bhavan, do not even have a good office space. It is not
Right.
having security, fire. I mean, it's a mess altogether. And while keeping the
So
all heritages in,
we'll have a new complex which will address all those concerns. But coming to the name thing again, Rajpath was the name, as Irfan Sahab was saying, that was given after independence. It was earlier called the King's Way. So how is it shedding the remnants of the British era, but just changing the name from Rajpath to Kartavya Path?
Yeah.
is that question to me?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So the Raj the name itself suggests in almost in every language or so far. It's more of like the Raja or the rule of Raja, and it is not anymore there. Yes, somebody from this panel was just talking about the Janpath. I think democracy is all about Janpath. And if we are able to, this is the central secretariat, including to the Rashtrapati Bhavan, is supposed to be the epitome of Kartavya, the duty, or it is not a position you will be delighted to enjoy as a king. I think it's a wonderful way of every road naming is always symbolic. And today's
Okay.
democracy
Okay.
need to have another symbol that be on your duty with a selfless. You are
Is
not
it
anymore
just
a colony.
symbolic? Is it just symbolic, Madhavan, or do you think there is an agenda behind renaming this piece of land and calling it Kartavya Path rather than Rajpath?
Let me say two things, Zaffar. First is that I'm quite sure that there is an agenda, which is that the ideology of the BJP and RSS has been nationalist in a very traditional cultural sense. No, many of us consider ourselves nationalists, but in a modern sense, you know. So modern nationalism is about constitution. In modern nation, it's not about culture. It's about the constitution and the administration under the constitution and in a certain territorial way based on the preamble. That is modern nationalism. Whereas cultural nationalism takes it back to traditions and history. There's a focus on history. And this whole emphasis on duty, as Kartavya comes from a certain military mindset, which there is sufficient evidence to show from the Prime Minister's speeches, emphasis on duties and a certain glorification of the armed forces rather than the civilians, because in modern democracy we treat everybody as equal. Civilian is also a karamveer, a lawyer. Everybody is doing something for the country, and also there is this the relationship between the state and the citizen is very different in a modern republic. Now, whereas the traditional view is focused, every citizen is treated as a a soldier in a traditional nationalistic mindset. So this is what I feel the government is doing, or the Prime Minister is doing, to emphasis on a traditional idea of Kartavya. But let me say two more things to really put things into perspective. Because Kartavya is only a Sanskrit word that means duty. It can be interpreted in many ways. I saw somebody on Twitter saying that this is meant to as a symbol to bureaucrats because bureaucrats are supposed to be serving the country. This will remind them of the Kartavya. Whereas the modern interpretation of the bureaucrat is of a civil servant. The government is the policy maker, the elected government, and the civil servant is not treated as a soldier-like figure. Is treated as an official. There is a nuanced difference between passion and duty. So that is something which is open to interpretation. But let me chip in my business. I feel that the Kartavya also is, in a modern sense, interpreted as a Kartavya of the citizens to keep the government in check. It's the Kartavya of the government, citizens to judge the government, not just obey the government, to judge the government. The people are the bosses. The government serves the people. So the government doesn't, देश सेवक नहीं, जनता सेवक मान के चलें, तो जनता का अधिकार है और कर्तव्य भी है कि सरकार को, कोई भी सरकार आए उसको चेक में रखे. तो people are free to interpret it as their own कर्तव्य to hold the government accountable. So that may be a modern
different ways of interpretation. But Irfan, Habib, you wanted to come in. Madhavan, Narayanan talked about cultural nationalism, modern nationalism. What do you see?
You see, for me, nationalism is something which has very different meanings. It can be used, interpreted differently by different people. And we know the sort of definition which we are seeing today, which is a very exclusivist definition, which defines nationalism in terms of culture, whose culture, in a diverse country like India, which is multicultural, which is multilingual, which is diverse in so many ways. So you can't have cultural nationalism in this country. So you have to have a composite nationalism which includes everybody. So this exclusivity which we see every other day, and I have seen a large number of people from the ruling party, members of parliament, etc., writing in different papers defining cultural nationalism, and I have questioned it through my own work many times. So this is a very narrow definition which we are seeing today, because nationalism in any case is something which is not very important for me. For me, patriotism is more important. We need to be associated, proud of our country. Nationalism is something else. Nationalism gives you, like as Gandhi said, you don't need nationalism. You don't need an enemy for being a nationalist. You don't need to hate somebody to be a nationalist. So today, something of that sort is happening. We find enemies within, not even without. We find enemies within to define our nationalism today. Lots of number of people are doing it, and we have debates all the time. So it's a long issue which we can always discuss. What I am trying to say here is Kartavya, as Madhavan has already raised those issues. Kartavya, who's Kartavya? Like our Prime Minister reminds people again and again in his speeches of Kartavya of people. Now, what about the Kartavya of the government? No, people don't have duties alone; they have rights as well. So don't go on reminding people of Kartavya, of their duties again and again. It was Indira Gandhi who introduced this fundamental right, this whole the duties, sometimes 74, 75. It was not even part of our constitution. So what is being said today is something which is associated with the people. So this Kartavya, I think, is part of that. Government wants to wash its hands off and leave people to be responsible citizens, which they should be. I have no disagreement on that.
But that is open to interpretations. Whose Kartavya, whether it's the Kartavya of the bureaucrats, Kartavya of the people. Yeah,
I am interpreting on the basis of what I or others also have been hearing in the past few years, the speeches, the writings, etc. People being reminded of Kartavya, etc. Second thing, which I have not spoken before, is about the Netaji statue, which is another significant change which is happening in that part of beautiful part of Delhi. I have no issues. Of course, Netaji should be there, and Netaji, we all respect him, and he should be there. He should have been there before. He's there now. Fine, no disagreement. My point is, when you talk of Netaji, he should not be confined to a mere statue. Read and write, speak about what he stood for. Netaji was not just INA. Netaji was much more than that. He spoke on gender. Look at his INA also. He
Right.
had a Lakshmi Brigade where women
Yeah.
were given an equal opportunity. No, he spoke
So,
about scientific temper.
so you need to look into all the aspects and not look
let
into
that statue
isolation.
let that statue speak. You know,
Yeah.
I'm saying that Netaji left behind a legacy, intellectual legacy, like Bhagat Singh has left behind, and
Ma,
we
ma,
should not confine them to just mere nationalists.
ma, ma,
They were
Madhavan
intellectuals.
wants to. Yes, Madhavan wants to come in. Yes,
Yeah,
Madhavan.
I want to share a small trivia about Netaji to
Yeah.
give people an idea. You know, when Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister, there was a Doordarshan serial called Raj Se Swaraj Tak. That serial had to be stopped halfway. The reason it was done was because there was one scene showing Netaji having a drink, an alcohol. Now, Netaji was not a Gandhian. He enjoyed his drink. But this might have been a historical fact. But people considered it with outrage and said Netaji is shown drinking. Whereas actually we should not create an image of Netaji which is further from reality. Netaji was a modern leader. In fact, he disagreed with Mahatma Gandhi because he found some of the aspects of Mahatma Gandhi pretty old-fashioned in a nonsensical way, honestly. He didn't like personality cults. Netaji, of course, had his own personality cult, which is living till today. Let me also bring in that Professor Irfan Habib, who's in this panel, is a biographer of Bhagat Singh. He's got a PhD on Bhagat Singh. Tomorrow, somebody might come and say, why are we having Netaji statue only? Why not Bhagat Singh? And it will become something like the Marina Beach in Chennai, where entire Central Vista will be full of statues. So what we need to understand is the ideas are very important. The diversity of idea and the pluralism of ideas and ideology is important. As long as that is preserved, I am adhering to the constitutional values. It's only monocultural or a single one-size-fits-all kind of nationalism. That's the problem. I keep saying, India has many nationalisms, but only one nationhood that is based on constitution. So if you deviate, if you try to paint others will throw 10 other paint cans at you. That is the moral of the story.
Yes. I wanted to touch upon other issue that comes to my mind, PKD. 20 months ago, the project was announced, and 20 months on, the Prime Minister is set to inaugurate a part of it. It has been done in really, really very fast in a record time. But what about other projects which are very important as far as ordinary people are concerned in this country? They never get completed. I belong to Jammu and Kashmir. There is a Jammu Srinagar National Highway which is never completed in my lifetime, always blocked because of rains and snow. Those things never find the same attention as is given to a project which is in Delhi and which is sort of very, looked at very importantly by the ruling class and by the Prime Minister himself.
This is the time which you took up a very important thing, because we were just going to, from Central Vista, we were going to the history, nationalism, and etc. I must tell you that I think for about this particular highway in the last parliament session, Nitin Gadkari had announced something in the next 20 months or so, it is going to be a reality. See, today we also need to look at that. Before, this is not a typical political debate, so I'm not going by that. In the DUPA 1 and 2, the average per day construction of national highway was about 6 to 8 kilometers. Today,
I'm just giving an example. National Highway, just an
I
example.
understand that. That's what I'm saying.
It's an important project, but never gets completed.
This is the first time in the history of India, and I repeat that this is the first time in the history of India, any project which the government has taken up is getting completed with a proper plan, and most of the projects are completed before time. So even in that is the reason I said that the average 40 kilometers per is the per day highway construction, which was not even in the case of the great time of US.
PKD, I can tell you, if I have to travel from Srinagar to Jammu, I have to every hour check the Twitter of the Jammu and Kashmir police to see the condition of highway. It changes every hour.
I think in your case, I think you will be soon having. You will be. I'm not.
I'm telling you the truth. Yes, PKD. Yes.
So I'm just telling you, we will come back to you on that. The whole idea, I wanted to just stick to this discussion today because both the senior people, I don't want to be a crying baby today. So I would say that Central Vista, look at the Central Vista from the point of view of India of today and for the tomorrow. any of two senior panelists here would have been visited our parliamentary building for the last several decades, many more times than me. चूहा है ना सर, चूहा तार काटते हैं. There is no scope. अगर आप उसका अंदर से अगर देखोगे तो एसी लगाने के लिए जगह नहीं है. An MP, a member of parliament who represents all people, not even have an office in Delhi.
Yes.
Yeah, people who, I mean, forget about within the parliament. They don't even have an adequate place to go and meet the people. Today, you and me may not be even able to go to a parliament building. So I think this infrastructure project is not for, it is for tomorrow. It's very significant and important. It is not just a signature project of Mr. Modi. This is going to be the signature of the new and a dominant in. It is going to be that is the one which is going to.
Madhavan, you would agree that it projects a new image of India, at least on the international stage. It presents India in a different way.
Yes, I think Mr. Modi is very lucky also, because as Newton once said, Sir Isaac Newton, the scientist, said, "I am standing on the shoulders of giants. I look tall." So the fact is that we should see nation building as a continuous process. And I was just seeing, Indira Gandhi launched the first satellite of India in 1975 in April. It was named after Aryabhatta, the famous ancient Hindu mathematician. No one accused her of being a Hindu nationalist, because she was a proud Hindu while being a composite nationalist. That is the beauty of her ideology. Just 1 year earlier, she had done Pokhran 1. At that time, the same questions had been raised. Can India, a poor country, have a nuclear test and all? So this will continue. India has already had ISRO launching satellites worldwide. So I don't think I'm worried about Central Vista as an economic idea or as a symbol of resurgence. But there are two things to be noted. One is that pride is one thing, overconfidence and hubris is another thing. The other thing is that you should see nation building as a continuous process in which others have contributed, from Nehruji's Bakranangal Dam to the satellite projects to IITs. All happened before the arrival of Mr. Modi. I shouldn't have people saying, this happened because of X gave the idea, or this is not the way to look at the nation. Then you have MyGov today, which is a website run by the government. So tomorrow some youngsters will say, I gave the idea for this. So this is a continuous process, which is a teamwork. Right. So I think Mr. Modi has a right to be tall, but he has to be. We have our duty, our Kartavya, to remind him that he's standing on the shoulders of some giants who preceded. Okay?
Kartavya to remind. PKD, you want to quickly come in before I give the last word to Irfan Saab?
Yeah, we were just talking about the Netaji statue. We need to understand this country over the last 60 years. Unfortunately have forgotten the great heroes, including Subhas Chandra Bose. I believe that every freedom fighter who contributed to the freedom of this country do require a decent place which they well deserved, both in the history and also in today's for all of us to see. Netaji unfortunately did not get that kind of a due, and if his statue is going to give that, I think we should all be very happy and thankful to this government. Not only that, the Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, which we all have been learned in the school that it is the Iron Man of India, or the one who was not even having that kind of an importance anywhere. If he has got a tall statue of him, I think we have enough Gandhi. We have enough Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and Nehru institutions all across. As if it gives a feeling that it belongs to one. This country used to belongs to another family.
Yeah, I want to make a small reference here that the Rajpath, at the end of Rajpath, there is a statue of Mahatma Gandhi. Earlier, there used to be a statue of King George there. So that itself was done. So Congress has also done a lot of things. The biggest icon for Congress has been Mahatma Gandhi. Somebody can have Netaji. Tomorrow, somebody will come and say Bhagat Singh, and somebody else will say, why not Anna Durai or Ambedkar? Because a nation, we can't be talking, we can't draw one line at one. Nation is a continuous river. So it keeps flowing. Absolutely. So somebody tomorrow, just remember, let me quote Sahil Ludhianvi, who said, Kal aur aayenge nagmo ki khilti kaliyan chunne wale, tumse behtar कहने वाले, मुझसे बेहतर सुनने वाले. So anybody who replaces one statue must be prepared to be replace some other day. That's all I want to say.
Irfan Saab, last word to you before we wrap up our show.
What PKD just said, by putting this statue here, because I don't think Netaji was forgotten. Now there are so much. We have roads named after him. We have statues of Netaji all over India in so many cities. Not one, several cities all around. Even in Delhi, you can find a statue of Netaji. You have Sardar Patel's Patel Square, Patel Chowk on Parliament Street with a Sardar Patel statue in the middle. So it's not that we have not respected our you are doing it in a more grander way. Do it, but don't say that others haven't done it. So this is something this competition, makes no sense at all. But we are not competing to celebrate our heroes. These heroes were our heroes, and we all share them. And we should not say that somebody else did not do it. As Madhavan very rightly said, India was not in 2014 as it was in 1947. No, a lot happened from 47 to 14, and it happened. Yeah. It happened to an extent that Modi can take it forward proudly. Had he got the India of 1947, I don't know what he would have done. So because Nehru inherited
it's always work in progress. That brings us to the end of the show. PKD, you quickly want to say something before I wrap up, but quickly.
I believe that the Prime Minister has always agreed and said that the government and governance is a continuous process. All the Prime Ministers, including our first till the one, everybody contributed the growth of this country, and it has been placed in many ways. He has said it, and I think let us do something more when it comes to Central Vista. I want all of you to open your eyes in a big, without having a prejudice, without having anything in your back of your mind. Don't oppose it blindly. It is going to be the greatest thing which India has seen.
It's for all of which India has seen, says PKD.
Modi to be there forever.
It's a continuous process. That brings us to the end of our show. Thanks to all our panelists for joining us. That's all we have in today's show. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.